Yes guys, welcome back to another video. Welcome to the George Benson Football Channel for your update on the situation right now at Chelsea. Every day this week I've woken up and from start to finish all I can think about is what is going to happen to our club. And I said here on GBFC there's been a ton of videos this week. There was a podcast yesterday with Eunice. If you didn't check it out on YouTube, you can also check it out on Apple's podcast or Spotify. Link to those are in the description. I went out last night and somehow even people that don't know anything about football even wanted to talk about what is happening right now with Chelsea. Obviously, different people have different agendas, and I don't mean agenda in a bad way. People just have different angles of interest from this kind of conversation, whether that is to do with the war, Roman Abramovich's supposed involvement in whichever sense that is, which again, there is a lot of blurred lines with that. We don't know exactly what it is entirely, but there is enough, obviously, for the UK government to have gone through with the actions this week of sanctioning Abramovich and therefore Chelsea Football Club as a result. And we as fans are kind of in the dark about a lot of things that are happening with the club right now. We have got the update now that Roman Abramovich has agreed to the sale of the club. We're going to go into what that means in a moment. I'd love to ask you to subscribe though to GBFC. As I said, there's been loads of content this week. The Newcastle preview is going to go out in a few hours time as well. So stay tuned on GBFC because this isn't the only video that you guys are going to be receiving today. But if we take a little look through, it looks as though we will be selling the club. So any kind of ambiguity that we may have had up until yesterday where we're looking at the deadlines and we're looking at the sanctions that have been put in place to Chelsea, and there was some kind of possibility out there that the club would go into administration. That would lead us to having a point deduction. And you've seen with clubs that have gone into administration before, this is never a good thing. Whether you get someone who comes in, lifts the club away from administration, or in the cases of like your Berries out there, obviously Chelsea a little bit different to Bury, but they're out of business. And now they've just got a stadium that is a shell of the life that once was the soul of that town. And the club is no longer. So Chelsea were never really going to be in that kind of situation. But until there was an agreement in place that the sale of the club would be able to actually happen, there was always going to be those big question marks about A, who's it going to be? B, when is this going to be done? Is this going to be something that can actually be done fast? And C, how does this affect Roman Abramovich? And what we can understand now is that Roman Abramovich will not only be wiping off the debt that Chelsea had to him of 1.5 billion, but that additional 1.5 billion, which would have been the kind of valuation that he would have put, he's also not going to make any of that money or see any of that money anyway. So Roman Abramovich could have dug his heels in. It was going to be a question of, does Roman love the club as much as he says he does, which would have been a very vague way of approaching this, because Roman Abramovich could still have a divine affinity and love and affection for Chelsea Football Club, but could have put his heels in and said, I'm sorry, but regardless of whether you sanction me or not, I'm not going to agree to sell the club and not see a single penny. And he said he was going to donate the money to victims of the war in Ukraine. Again, very ambiguous. We don't know exactly whether that would have been to Ukrainians or not. I think it is a very easy step and choice for people to make to say that, oh, that would have definitely just been for Russians that have been hurt by it or affected by the war. That's like, for me, the very cheap way of just kind of just throwing everything at Roman Abramovich as if he is also on the same level as Vladimir Putin right now, which I'm glad to see a lot of the comments on my videos where there is kind of that rationale from a lot of you guys that, yeah, okay, Roman Abramovich may not have been the cleanest billionaire in the history of billionaires, and therefore there is definitely a point where we have to hold our hands up as fans of the club and be like, we totally understand why this is happening, but for him to not actually see any money as a result of this is absolutely mad. And it's kind of difficult for me to fathom, even though we've known that Roman Abramovich as the football owner has been so great for Chelsea Football Club. To have to go out like this, it's a very sad way for this to end, but obviously now that he has given the agreement for the sale of the club, the government can now go ahead and try and sell Chelsea Football Club. There is still a hell of a lot of concern in my mind that whoever it is that comes in, are they going to be the kind of owners who actually care about the fans, who care about the football and the quality of what we have witnessed in recent years? It's a massive debate as to whether or not Chelsea will ever be able to see the same kind of consistent level of success that we've experienced in the past 19 years. So we've got Matt Law talking about Roman Abramovich giving the green light for the sale of Chelsea to go ahead despite sanctions. Is Todd Boehly the man to come in? Todd Boehly had something to say about the Super League as well. Basically, the fan is in the middle of all of those business models, and if you forget that, then you forget really why you set out in the first place. It's very difficult to make a fortified judgment that was actually a full judgment about any potential Chelsea owners just by looking at one quote. But considering, I think it's a difficult period for Chelsea fans to kind of get it into their heads that we're not going to have an owner, probably, who's quite as good as Abramovich has been as an owner. Not saying that he's the most perfect, best bloke in the world, definitely not. We're not going to have an owner who will probably be able to provide exactly what Abramovich has done. And even just from this quote here with Todd Boehly, the reason that I've not really spoken too much about potential owners and who I like, who I don't like, until we really get to hear about what people want to do specifically with Chelsea Football Club. We can tell quite quickly from official statements from these rich billionaire people what their intentions are with Chelsea Football Club. And from what we can see here from Todd Boehly, who is one who has kind of been like the favourite this week in the Chelsea headlines and the Chelsea news with his interest in buying the club, it looks to me as though, at least from this point on the Super League, that Todd Boehly is a man who really understands that the pillars of what makes a football club is, of course, you and I, us the fans, are the most important. So the news regarding what bids and when these bids are actually going to come in for Chelsea, the deadline has been set to the end of next week. So we've got another week to kind of receive all of these bids, people that want to come in and buy Chelsea, be that individuals, be that consortiums. The end of next week, all of the bids will be on the table, and then we're going to see who it's going to be. I want to update you guys as much as I can on any given updates on this situation, is because we have then got to start thinking about, is Petr Cech going to remain? Is Marina Granovskaya going to remain at Chelsea Football Club? She's been such a key person in all of this. You know, Frank Lampard was speaking about Roman Abramovich in an Everton interview, and it seems as though Lampard has even kind of crossed his stories with what he said in the past about being close with Roman Abramovich, and then in the recent interviews, like, oh yeah, hardly ever bloody see him or speak to him, to be honest. So Marina Granovskaya is the one who is on the ground day by day since Roman Abramovich has not been allowed into London. She has been so key in everything that Chelsea have been doing. Will these people stay on? Will the people that take over Chelsea, which I probably believe they will, they'll want to come in with their own staff. They're going to want to set everything up, because as much as we like to think that whoever is the owner of the football club is going to act as a custodian for the club with all of its best interests intact, you can never be sure on all of these things, because people operate in different ways. People have their groups, their employees, the people they trust. And when we're talking billions of pounds, not just millions of pounds, then we as fans right now, as much as we feel as though we should be the owners of Chelsea Football Club, because we're the important ones, you know, we're the ones who make everything worth something. You know, if there was no fans, there's almost no point in anything. And I guess the more we look now into the very near future for Chelsea, we're going to have the issues like we spoke about in the podcast yesterday with travel, tickets not being able to be sold for games. And I think that day by day, this situation will change. I think there are definitely things the government could be doing. And I said this yesterday to people when I was out. I had a few drinks last night and I was talking, and I said, why don't the UK government, if they want to punish Chelsea and punish Abramovich is what they want to do, but they're punishing Chelsea, so why don't they sell tickets? Why don't they allow that to happen and donate the proceeds to victims in Ukraine? Will they do that? Absolutely not. Should they do that? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. But anyway, Newcastle preview is going to be out in a few hours' time, so stay tuned for that one. Thank you guys for watching. If you did enjoy this video today, be sure to hit the like button. Let me know your current thoughts on everything going on. The green light's been given. Let's see who buys our club. Come on, you Blues.